So today we have an interview with, I never thought I would say this, but my favorite immigration attorney. I didn't know I would have one of those before we moved here. So this is the person when you email us and tell us, you know, you're not sure who to turn to for a complicated immigration situation. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all I get.
Yeah. We're like, we know where to send you. So I'll let him introduce himself, and
Sure.
then we're gonna talk through a few. There's a lot of questions that you guys frequently send us that I'm not sure I'm necessarily the most qualified person to ask, but he is.
Yeah. So yes, hi, I'm Daniel Tostado. I am from my own law firm, I guess, Tostado Avocat, and we're a team of about 20 lawyers and jurists, and we help people move here to France. And I think I'm a good fit to help a lot of folks, having myself been an immigrant moving from San Diego, California.
Yes.
That was about 10 years ago now, having the French bar, the US bar, and then making my whole life mission, my vocation being help folks have more France in their lives. Whether it's becoming French or getting that first visa into France or changing status, I have a hard time turning it off. I feel like a doctor at a party with everyone's like, I've got this mole. I'm like, oh, you should probably file for change of status in the next 3 months.
That's fantastic. I love that should be the tagline for the cabinet.
You've got a mole?
No, no, I was thinking more French in your life.
More French in your life.
Yeah,
I
love that as the mission.
Yeah, I like your best French life, because I kind of feel like that's what we're helping people do. Both you and Jason and myself, we're helping people have that, because it is accessible, it is doable, and I want people to realize that.
Yes, completely. And you brought up one of the reasons I think also that I felt a real connection when I first saw some content that made me aware, which is you're American too. You're American and you're French. Mm-hmm. And so what was the journey that brought you to France to start with? A little background.
Yeah, so I had always had a bit of a romantic place in my heart for France. I think it was, the Hollywood version of France, the like the gloss over version of it. And then you get here and you see, of course, like it's hard to get healthcare, it's hard to open a bank account, but that's a story for another day. And I tried out a couple different countries, but I always kind of felt called to be abroad. It was more of a challenge, it's more fun. Yeah. I like to think of the word, trash can in English, it's trash can, and in French it's poubelle. C'est belle la poubelle,
Yeah.
Like we're living this elevated, elegant lifestyle where even our trash cans are beautiful.
The butcher's window is beautiful. It amazes me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was trying to figure out for the life of me how to make this work. And I moved to France like 3 different times, and the first 2 times it just didn't stick. I kept on kind of getting ricocheted off of France. And so it's finally coming here as a student to then transition into the workforce, and then onto the entrepreneur status, then spouse of an EU national, and then finally becoming French myself. Yeah. And then I've won the board game. I'm French, so.
And I love that you just brought something up that is, sometimes France takes some persistence.
Yeah.
It might be getting here, it might be figuring out your vocation when you're here, it might be getting healthcare, but there's a little persistence involved usually. And I think it's nice for people to know that it doesn't mean that this isn't for you or it's not going to work out. You just got to keep trying.
Yeah, you got to keep trying. You got to have the courage to overcome the difficulties. And that's why I like living abroad, because I feel like I'm growing at a higher rate, a faster rate than as I was growing as an American in America. I feel like I could necessarily more or less stagnate if things are not changing all the time. But here in France, every time you talk with your banker or the boulanger or whomever, you're having to put on your best accent, you're having to put on your best grammar, you're thinking new thoughts, and when you speak in a foreign language, you create new synapses in your brain. It links together things you never would have thought to link together.
Yes.
And because of that, I should hope that I'll become the smartest version of myself in moving here to France. And so I like the version of me that's come out of it. It is harder, but then it's like anything that's hard. It's like, auditioning for the football team or trying to get into the military. You come out as a better product of yourself because of it. Yeah,
Jason and I frequently say, it's not that life in France is easier, but it's better in the way I feel about my day-to-day life, But
yeah.
Okay, so I want to dive into some of the questions that we frequently get. And one it's a bit of a more recent topic is people asking us about, is France seeing more American visas being processed? Are there quotas? Is there they're worried that maybe France is going to change how they're processing them? What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. So America in the U.S. immigration system does have quotas for given countries, for the green cards. And I think a lot of the times when we move I mean, because not everyone that's watching your channel is American, but a lot of the audience is, that we kind of have to undo what we've learned about American immigration system. And when we apply it to France, there is no equivalent of ICE in France. They're not looking in the street looking to deport folks in the same manner. Not to get too political, but it's hard to avoid that nowadays. And so, yes, the U.S. side does have quotas. It can be hard, let's say, if you're in America, trying to move to America and then you study there. There's like a lottery system to stay in America. You might have like a 1 in 3 chance of staying. In France, there's no quotas. There's no quotas by nationality. There's no quotas by visa category. And so, what does that mean? It means that, let's say there's about 30 different visa categories. If you qualify for one, and they approve it, then you can move here, And if one of the best ways to come to France and stick the landing is to get a master's in France and then enter the workforce. And you could just pick your master's degree, you'll probably get in, because in France, it's not like it is on the US side for the selectivity of schools.
Yeah, and there's no age limit on that, I want to say.
Great.
On the student visa.
Right, no, there's no age
there's
limit.
No age limit.
During COVID, we had a lot of folks come in on the student visa because the visitor visa, which is the most popular route into France, was closed off. And so, there was no age limit for that.
But you don't see the way France is processing visas currently or anything like that?
Shifting, not at all. Very far from it. And where I do see it shifting is, like, let's say in August of 2020, the Taliban took over Afghanistan and everyone wanted to get out of Afghanistan. And so there, yes, we were seeing that the French consulate was saturated. It was very hard for the Afghanis who qualified to be able to, file for visas and get on their way. So I think that's the point of reference to say, what would it look like for us as Americans to not be able to get through the French border. Now, when we're filing out of the U.S., there's 10 different locations of the TLS where you can file. The processing time is anywhere from 8 days for the visitor visa to 3 weeks. So it's very doable. It can happen very quick. And should the next big thing happen in the U.S., in short order, we can get out of the U.S. and be on a flight to France with a visa sticker in hand.
Yeah, I've been super impressed with the French consulate in the U.S. and how they've kept up with visa processing. Because people are usually emailing us when they're excited when they've received theirs, and we're like, wow, it does. It happens usually in less than a month.
And how many Americans are here in France? We don't really know. There's a couple different data points online, somewhere between 10,000 to 30,000 Americans that are here. I think it's probably closer to 30,000. We are kind of, I feel like we feel our presence, but we're kind of a little bit of a drop in the bucket of a country of 66 million French people. Where I don't know how much they notice us. And then Paris, of course, where I live, is the tourist capital of the world in terms of cities. So I think to a certain extent they're kind of used to that. The circuit between Notre Dame going over to the Eiffel Tower, there's a lot of English being spoken, so that's nothing new for them.
So coming to that, as you enter the country now, what if you get here on one visa and then you decide you want to change? So either you come here for retirement and you're like, us Americans, we like side hustles, right? And you decide you want to start to work, or you come here on a work visa, and which once you commit to that, you are obligated to do that. It's part of, as a self-employment visa, it's part of what France expects of you now. If you come on that visa and you say, wait a minute, actually I think I'm going to retire. How hard is it to make this change?
Yeah, it's realizing that for the first time in our lives, we don't have automatic work authorization. We cannot just start working tomorrow, like making our own company or being hired as an employee. We have to realize this is not our land, this is not our rules, and we've kind of put ourselves at the end of the queue in order to have a cooler, richer experience with better baguettes and, what is this guy called?
It's totally worth the trade. But yes, it's kind of shocking to be in an immigration system for the first time in your life and just not have every right to be able to do anything you want anytime. You're like, there's rules for you now.
And it's part of the an American and an American mentality that we have to little bit by little unlearn, because we are now an American in a foreign land, and that's a new mentality to have to discover. And so yes, it would be handy if we could just kind of be a person, but for those, at least for the first 5 years, we usually put ourselves in a box. I am in the student box, and that's the kind of activity that I'm doing with some part-time working as an employee. I'm an entrepreneur box, so I cannot work as an employee. I'm an employee, so I cannot work as an entrepreneur. And if you get married to the right kind of person, a French person, a European person on a talent passport, yes, you have full working rights to work. If you're not married to the right person, then you are in a shoebox and you have to kind of categorize yourself as such. So usually the rule is within the first 2 years, it's hard or impossible to change your status. If you just got here and you're looking to have a better status that has work authorization, it might be in the interest to go back to your home country and refile for a new visa and then return on that, especially with the new rules of naturalization. That naturalization had been for the longest time, be here for 5 years, work for 18 months. And so it could have been that you came in on the visitor visa for 3 years, changed your status to entrepreneur, year 4, year 5 you worked, and at that 5-year marker, you meet all the criteria. They're coming down a little bit harder on immigrants, and they are in every country. because they want to ask more out of us in order for us to become French.
Yeah.
So as of this summer, 2025, they're now asking 5 years of being here and 5 years of working here. They want us to have the center of our academic interests be here in France, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough order, it's a tall order, but I think it's fair. And so then that means that maybe if you were here for 8 months as a visitor, that might not have advanced your goals of getting naturalized in 4 years and 4 months' time, because those months didn't effectively count because you haven't yet worked in France. So then might as well go back to the home country and file for a new work-based visa. If you've been here for more than a couple of years, it might start to be more interesting to file for change status locally with the prefecture.
Okay.
I think of it this way, that it's like the image of a pool with a little waterfall trickling into it. That the trickling is the consulate. They see you quickly. It's within 3 weeks you got the visa, you're here. And then you're in the pool. And in the pool, you're dealing with the local prefecture.
Right.
And they're seeing you again and again. So they might take 8 months for processing an application. Down in the Vaucluse, which is a little bit north of Nice, it took one of our clients more than 2 years to file for change of status.
Wow.
So I'm always a little bit skeptical about the change of status process in France, because it could take 3 months or it could take a whole lot longer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the person's willing, like mentally signing up for, I'm going to wait for 2 years for my visa to be processed, if the consulate's just right there and it takes 3 weeks. So it's a bit of mental math.
Yeah, and that makes sense, like the choice there, because you are, and I don't know if it may be unclear, but like if you go back to your home country and start on a new visa, it's almost as like whatever time you've been here in France, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of like that's now erased.
Yeah.
You're starting over. So that was his point, is like if you realize you want to change and you've just been here a little time, it doesn't really matter that you're giving up that time, because it's not going to count towards long-term staying in France if it's that you're going to try and change from visitor to working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's get right into the weeds, because the two, that's where I live in the weeds. The two long-term statuses you might aim for is the 10-year card or naturalization. And naturalization requires that you work in France. 10-year card is just you've been here for 5 years on one of the categories of visa that qualifies. And the 10-year card is great because it has full-on work authorization. It gets the prefecture off your back for 10 years.
Yeah.
So if you've been on the visitor visa for 4 years, the visitor visa does count towards the 10-year card.
Oh,
so
okay,
if you did 1 extra year of waiting on that category, then in a year's time, you could be having a status 10 years and work authorization.
Yeah.
And then with that, then you're off to the races. You don't really have to ask for permission to set up a company.
Yeah.
So if they've been here for more than 4 years, maybe then we'd have them stay here in France.
And just
that's the kind of situation where you might be well advised to talk with either an immigration lawyer or an immigration expert, not necessarily a lawyer per se, but someone who knows what the game is and what the rules are.
Yeah, and which is the best, do you pass go, do you like,
voila, exactly.
That makes sense. Okay, so that brings me to another question that, so it sounds like you've answered part of this. Is right now we've been getting a lot of questions about retirees ever being able to obtain citizenship if they haven't ever worked in the country. And then, so I think the question to go with that then is, do you think that that's important for most retirees versus just getting that 10-year residency card? How do you think
Great
about
question.
that?
I've got a lot of thoughts about this. So in your day-to-day life, like let's say you've been here for 6 years now and you've got the 10-year card. In your day-to-day life, you've got the right to work, you've got the right to move abroad, even up to 3 years, and move back to France and keep the 10-year card.
Okay.
Technically, you've got the right to move around to the other 27 EU countries. In practice, it's kind of hard to show up in Portugal and say, elected status now, and they've never really heard of this category before. But it has a lot of those rights that in the day-to-day, you might not feel the difference between being French or just being on that 10-year card. Yeah. Because what is it really? It's getting in the good line at the airport, and it's voting once every 5 years.
It's citizenship.
Yeah, citizenship.
Yeah.
And so if it's just an ordinary Tuesday, whether you're French or on the 10-year card, it's fine. So for a lot of my retirees, I am aiming them towards or orienting them towards the 10-year card. If you've, maybe this next sentence is harsh, so maybe you could take for it what you will. If you've been just American for 65 years and you're dead set on becoming French, it's almost like a choice point. Do you put in the extra 5 years to then work here in France, and then the extra, minimum 18 months it takes to process your naturalization application to become French in your 70s? Or you say, you know what, I don't necessarily need to have an identity shift and have like the French passport to be French on paper to be living my best life.
Yeah.
Whether it's the quality of life, the wine, the cheese, the enjoyment of my time here on planet Earth, whether I'm French or not, I can have a lot of those underlying goals on the 10-year card.
Right.
Versus if a person's in their 20s and maybe they want to be able to bestow French citizenship onto a future spouse, onto their minor children, there might be more utility out of that.
Yeah, I like that perspective because it really is a personal thing. Once you're at a certain point in life, is this important to put in the work to change really like part of who your identity is? Because otherwise, I like that example. On a random Tuesday, it's not going to be much different.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so speaking of children and bestowing citizenship on children,
Yeah.
if a family comes here
Yeah.
and they have minor children, I have two questions. One, what visa are usually those children on? And second, what happens if you come and your teenager turns 18 here in France and they're still in high school, they're not ready to go out on their own, you're not going to ship them back to the US.
Yeah.
But suddenly now they are the age of majority? Was that the right word?
Yeah, that's the right word in French. In English, it's no longer the right word.
And so now they suddenly would need their own immigration status. What happens?
Yeah, you might have put more thought into that question than the French authorities ever put into this question of what happens when this child turns 18, because it's like this legal black hole. Like there's a lot.
I'm a 14-year-old. I'm worried about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do minors usually move to France? If the parents are entering on the visitor visa, the children will enter on that same status, right?
Okay.
And that the child, whether they get a non-renewable VLST, temporary, or a VLSTS visitor visa, you don't see in the prefecture queuing up like little children asking for their residency cards. That'd be a silly sight. So it's only adults that get residency permits. So at best, children get a document called the DCEM, Document de Circulation pour l'étranger mineur. And that is it's not a visa, it's a document that helps you at the border, coming and going, just say, here's a minor who lives here in France, so don't give them trouble, at the border, let them back in.
Juliana has one. She uses it to go to when she went to the UK.
Justement, when it's like Juliana's class going without the parents up to the UK on a school field trip, that's a perfect case for why you might want to have like the child on a DCM, because otherwise a child is attached to their parents and their parents' immigration status.
So if you cross the border, you have to be with them.
Yeah, you would. Most of the time, people are traveling with their child, the children, and it's only once they start to gain independence that might be a useful, use of DCEM. And the caveat to that is oftentimes it's not American children that get asked at the border.
Oh.
I think there's some amount of discrimination at play here. It's usually, from Africa, Middle East, and other countries where they might start to ask, does this child have a DCEM or a proof of immigration status in France? So what happens when they turn 18? If you arrived here before the age of 13 and did 5 years of schooling, you get the good VPF category, Vie Privée et Familiale, private family life. And that lets them, at age 18, enroll in French public school, maybe work on the side, work however. VPF lets them just be a human. It's lovely. If the parent entered on talent passport, and the children would enter on talent passport family as of age 18, they can ask for talent passport family, which similarly lets them be a human, lets them work however they want to do. And then after that, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. If the child entered France 14 or later, at age 18, France has not thought of what that person should be getting.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's hot water. So you might be able to try to knock on the door of the prefecture and say, hey, hi, we exist. We'd like for this child who's now 18 in the course of this year, the next 365 days, we'd like for them to have some kind of immigration status. And then the prefecture chooses to reply or chooses to not reply. And then it depends on the prefecture. Oh. We've had a lack of success in Argenteuil in the 95. We've had great success down in Montpellier. Yeah. And in the third case, it was because the parents were British, and so then they were on a post-Brexit status, so then the daughter was able to get Brexit. So it can sometimes work. If it doesn't work, you just think to say, okay, well, let's have this kid go back to the US, ask for a student visa, enroll in French university that manner, and then come right back here and keep on living their life, their best French life.
Their best French life.
The trick of it is, and it's an impossible category if the 18-year-old is still enrolled in high school. Because you cannot get a student visa to go to high school. You can only get a student visa to go to university.
Oh, wow. And they've got to finish high school to be able to go to university.
Yeah. So probably if you've got that rare case, come talk to me.
I would say this is one of those examples. Yeah. 100%. Definitely. Okay. All right. So I think we've spent a little, I almost hate to ask this question because I'm sure you have gotten it in other interviews before.
Okay.
And it's a little contentious.
Yeah. Paris or Nice, nowhere else.
Okay. There we go. He knows what I'm going to ask. Okay, so for all the rest of you out there
was
watching,
that the question?
It was.
Oh, wow. I was just making stuff up. I was trying to figure out the most obnoxious answer as a Parisian to say for your channel.
Oh, where to move. No, I was thinking about remote work.
Oh, yeah.
And what I'm talking about when I say remote work, because I feel like there's a lot of it now with people who might have their own business and they're just like seeing clients from France. I'm not talking about that. That's self-employment, right? And there's a visa for that. But an American W-2 employee who has rights to work in the US and moves to France on a long-stay visitor visa and now is a French tax resident because they're living here all the time, but they're exercising their US work rights remotely. Yeah. What is we know there's tax issues. What's immigration? What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky thing because there is not a law that says we have the right to telework in France on the visitor visa for a non-French company, and there's not a law that says we do not have the right to telework.
Yes.
So then what you get is the French authorities plugging in, trying to figure out what is the actual answer to that question.
Yes.
So then we've seen in writing from the consulate, the prefecture, and the Ministry of the Interior that they allow or tolerate teleworking on this visitor visa, because there is no digital nomad visa in France.
There's no option.
Then what we see, and the online website, The Local, does a good job covering this. What we see on the tax authority side of things and the Social Security side is that they say, no. It's wherever you're seated, that's where you're working, and that's where you file social charges. And if you're not doing it, then it's not compliant.
Right.
So you've got a situation where the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. So then what we did in our law firm was we looked into the practice and the case law, the jurisprudence, and this, as they say in French. Has a person ever gotten in trouble for teleworking on this visitor visa? Have they ever had to countersue the French government? And its silence, which for me matches onto what the French consulate has been saying this whole time, that that's actually the best fit for you. I think what happening concretely is that they made the visitor visa in 2005, before the idea of international teleworking was a concept that existed. And that around 2020, we finally discovered that we can all basically work from a computer from anywhere. Like the concept of working in a given location doesn't align with modern work practices.
Yeah, exactly.
And that other countries, due to COVID, decided to create the digital nomad visa, and France didn't. And so then France kind of shoehorned all these digital nomads into the long-stay visitor visa. And so concretely, what does that mean? What we see in practice is that Americans will put on their visa application, because it says in the checklist, a promise to not exercise any professional activity in France. You're like, any activity in France? Does that mean any activity tout court? Does that mean any activity in
it's a very open.
France? And then the next line of the checklist is, by the way, if you're employed, please provide us your work contract and some recent pay slips. And maybe a letter from your employer. If you're self-employed, please show us your articles of incorporation. So then people do that. People include these documents with promise to not work in France. And then what does the consulate deliver to them? The visitor visa. And then once they get here to France, and there's the online website called ANEF, where they file, ANEF, where they file for the renewals. You can click in the pull-down menu, where's your money coming from? And you can say bank account, you can say rent, you can say work from abroad. And so then you can indicate that in the application. So one thing that my law firm is taking the lead in is reaching out to the French authorities, the ministers of Ministry of Interior, Assemblée Nationale, saying, let's knock on doors, let's get a clear answer, whether it's one way or the other. Because it is one big legal gray area.
Yes, and it's ambiguous. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because people often, I feel like there's a lot of camps out there that are like the no camp and the yes camp. Like, this is ridiculous, you can do it, and the no. And the reality is, it is a huge gray area. It's just, that's what it is.
I think people assign me to the yes camp because I effectively say, I am an immigration lawyer, so I'll defer to the consulate. The consulate says yes, then great. But then you might meet with me and then meet with the accountant, and then the accountant says, listen, I'm an accountant, I'm going to follow what the fiscal authorities say. And if the fiscal authorities say it's a no-go, then you might have two paid professionals with the conflicting professional opinions on a very nuanced subject.
Yes, 100%. I've heard of, we have someone who's emailed us and they're moving, and I'm hoping to interview them in the future after they see how it goes. But he actually works for a law firm in the US. He's an employee, and they've agreed to set up with an HR, a third party that will help.
We can talk about that too, because that's actually really interesting to talk about the alternatives to this whole teleworking question.
And so he's still working for them as an employee, and yet he's also contributing. And I'm not sure how that all works. I want to talk to him and see.
Let's talk about it. So there's a couple of routes, right? There's what we just talked about, the teleworking. You can be open and honest about it with the French authorities, and then they'll still issue the visitor visa. And if you don't have an employee, like an entrepreneurship activity with clients in France, they're not going to want to give you work authorization. But the alternative is then to find some clients in France. What is your practice? My practice is therapy, and I give therapy to English-speaking people. Well, maybe you could service the expat community here in France. And if you could find some clients in France, then you can get the entrepreneur visa, incorporate here in France. Another route is what's called employer of record, which I hadn't really heard about this as a concept before I moved to France. In French, they call it portage salarial, who is being ported, they are transporting the salarié, the employee. So it's a tripartite agreement between your real employer outside of France, the employee of record here in France, like Oyster, Deal, Régie Portage. There's a lot of companies that do this. And then you used to just have a work contract with you and the employer. Now it has the service agreement between your real employer and the employer of record,
Okay.
and then they give you a real French work contract between you and the employer of record. And you pay through the nose on social charges, and then the employer of record takes their own small cut of 7%, but it is very, very compliant.
Okay, yes.
And that's the core word that accountants love to
Okay.
use is like, what's the most compliant approach?
Yeah, okay. And that's what I think he's doing based on that description.
Yeah.
So there are options.
Yeah.
If you want to explore those.
There's even more. We can talk about it if that's
No, that's okay. I think actually we've gone into a lot of really specifics, which is amazing because people who watch our channel are usually often researchers, DIY. They want to know these things. And also, there probably is like a capacity for specific immigration legal talks. I want to ask you a few questions so people can have a little sense of some of your personality and life here in France too.
Yeah.
So when you go back to the U.S. to visit, what's the very first thing you do or you eat when you get there?
My dad and my mom show up at the airport with eggnog in the car.
Awesome.
So that they pour it for me, and then I have eggnog when I get home. You can make eggnog from home. In French, they call it lait de poule, which of course doesn't make sense in French. Chicken's milk, chickens don't.
That's what I was like, whoa, what?
I haven't yet tried. Maybe I should just make the attempt to try. There's that. There's root beer. There's a lot of things that I miss on the food side of things. France gets more and more Americanized, to be honest. When I arrived here, Krispy Kreme was not yet here in France. As of last year, it's now here. So it shows up in various different ways. One of the series I want to do, and maybe you should also do it on your channel, is interviewing people that have been here for 50 years and see how France has changed over the past 50 years.
Oh, that's a
because when they all
idea.
got here, peanut butter wasn't on the market. We
couldn't have come then. Jason loves peanut butter.
And when they try to market in French peanut butter, they have the American flag on it, and then it was like fabricated in UK. There's certain things that I miss about the States, of course, family, that all the nieces and nephews are growing older on the US side. But with modern technology, with WhatsApp groups and what have you, they're only a phone call away. You can be in touch every day if you wanted to. I think there's a big difference between how we immigrate to France now and how we immigrated pre-internet.
Oh, I can't imagine.
All the study abroads in 1980s and 90s, we're just like,
writing letters.
Like if I want to watch Seinfeld, I can find it online.
Yes.
Versus if you moved here in the 80s, you would have to watch French TV, watch French films, read French newspapers, listen to French radio. You'd be totally off the deep end in France. That whole total immersion, I think, is for better for worse gone.
Yeah.
So you will always have a softer version of that now with a strong expat community because we do exist in case you need that circle of friendship to batter, to deal with the things that are still French because we moved here for a reason, right? We did move here because we want France.
Yes.
And we want things to be French because that's cool.
Yes. So are there any French habits that, because you've been here for a while, that you still want to take on and you just nope, I don't think that one's ever going to be there.
I don't think it would fit for me to complain. I'm not a natural complainer.
Yeah.
Like I'm very, very positive in my outlook. And I feel like, and they say that it's like the national sport of France is to complain. And in one of my first work settings, it was kind of how you would advance the lunchtime conversation was you would kind of just complain at each other and like, and when I first moved to France, I could not believe how many la 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 la's you could throw on. There's not a fixed cap on the la la la. You go la 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 la. You could just keep on going.
Yes, you've got the French.
Maybe I'm down. Maybe I can impersonate a Frenchie.
But it's bonding, and if that's not it's like a bonding experience.
I guess
and if that's
commiseration.
And if that isn't your personality type, because it's not really mine either.
No.
I was like, why is my dentist complaining to me about the price of eggs? And one of my French friends was like, he's bonding with you.
Yeah, better that than complaining about your teeth. Oh la 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 la, madame. When did you floss last?
That's true. It's true. It's funny you say that too because we mentioned dentist on another video we just made. So it's really funny you actually mentioned that. So I know because I've watched other interviews you've done that your heart is in Paris.
Yeah.
But if you had to have a second home in France, where would it be?
Saint-Jean-de-Luz. So that's in French Basque Country, not too far from the Spanish border. It's really dreamy. I'm a Californian at heart. I like to have the seaside. I like to be able to overlook la mer. And it's charming. So anything in French Basque Country, basically, but along the coastline, Biarritz, Bayonne, I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
I think I've invested too much in Paris. Like, you do your master's degree, the friends are from Paris, you kind of stay, and then you kind of sink in wherever you choose, whether it's where you live in Paris, or in France, or where I live in France. At a certain point, you invest in the people,
Yeah.
And then you have a hard time imagining being elsewhere just because this is where life is now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like, we never imagined we would end up where we were in the village we're in, but now we wouldn't leave because our friends are there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then, and then it's an inertia problem.
Yeah. That's true. But I feel like there's not very many bad choices in France because the lifestyle that to me permeates the essence of France is everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the setting might be a little different. You know, what you call, oh, there's no chocolatines here. I was going to say what you call this.
Yeah.
But is a lot of the people that watch our channel, they're moving independently to France. Like this was their dream and they're figuring it out on their own step by step. And so how would they know when they're like, okay, I see these boxes, I think I can apply for my own long stay visa or my own professions liberale, and like when might they consider instead calling an immigration firm? Like who do you think that serves best?
Yeah, so I'm never here to push too hard when it comes to like promoting my services. I like people to know that I exist, and if they feel like they could use some extra hand-holding, or they're feeling particularly stressed, or they just want to make sure that it goes right, or they want to just like have that reassurance, that hand-holding, make sure, okay, this time let's get it right. They can always turn to a professional like myself and my team. It's not a requirement. If it's more of like a work visa, that might be a better, like an entrepreneur category, that might be a better occasion to really, pull out the big guns. I don't think I'm necessary for a student visa or for an au pair visa.
Yeah.
And so it's for me, it's a question of you never really know what you don't know. It's the Rumsfeldian, you don't know what you don't know. And so I got contacted by a gal who a couple years back who said, I spent the whole summer trying to fill in, like I filled out the form on the France Visa form website, and I couldn't log on to the website to make my booking. She was thinking it was the same one website and didn't just realize.
No.
And I was like, I could have told you in 10 seconds, like, and did it for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation just right before we started filming about a blocage, a difficulty in just making the appointment. So sometimes you can run your head into the system of like, I think this is how this should work. And then France doesn't necessarily work that way. As we both come to learn, it's famous for its bureaucracy. And if it wasn't bureaucratic, I wouldn't have a job. So to a certain extent, it's to be taken with, the positives and the negatives.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to this is not a sponsored video, but I like for you to know when you're watching our channel, how to make decisions. We put a lot of information out so that then it's like you can see a complete picture and then make a decision. And I think that's one of the decisions in the process is if you're going to do something yourself or if you're going to get help. And I think like your point too, the work visas are often more complicated. And I think it's more about painting the picture to make a presentation to France. And that takes expertise and skill. Whereas some of the others are much more straightforward. And I just want to give you that to think about when you might decide to go on your own path because you've done research. You're the kind of person who's detail-oriented. I think that's important. Or if you should call someone for help.
Or just kind of making sure that you understand what they're asking for.
Yes.
So like, I usually think about it in terms of like autonomy. If a person's autonomous enough, like let's say they've already moved to Germany once in the past and they've got a good sense of what this kind of process is like, that might be a good fit. But I mean, it's like us as small little pieces putting ourselves on a new board game, right? Like we're taking our little sorry, piece and we're going onto the Monopoly board. Different set of rules. Don't end up in jail. I did have to go to, Charles de Gaulle has an airport prison for people that...
What?
Yeah, for people who don't know...
I didn't know this.
how to... what their laws are, or if they have the right to enter the country.
Yeah, okay.
And so, I had to go in August for a person to get them out. So that month, I was screaming in my head the whole month, please people hire a lawyer, otherwise you could end up in airport prison. But I don't want that to be the conclusion for your audience. I'm not here to be, I'm not a scare tactic lawyer. I'm a nice, friendly immigration lawyer here to help people along their path because I love this country. I want to share this country with.
Okay, well, thank you so much for spending time with us here and, donating some of your time and expertise for people who are thinking through their options for their best French life.
Exactly.
Thanks for watching.
Et à bientôt.